Well, I'm really happy to be able to introduce Kimberly St. Julian-Varnon, class of 2012. Kimberly is a member of the inaugural class of Frank V Fellows. By the way, so is Nell Bang-Jensen. I forgot to mention that before. And this is an initiative of the Adelot Foundation, our fabulous intellectual community and center that's dedicated to the study of the liberal arts, to study and dissemination and support of the liberal arts. And the Frank V was a group of 5 young alumni whose work was being lifted up for their high achievement. So I love seeing this connection, the fact that 2 of our 5 were Frank V also. I love seeing the connection between this Adelot Foundation that lifts up the liberal arts and what the kind of work that Jean Lang was so dedicated to, work that has social impact, work that liberal arts in the service of social impact, in the service of engaged scholarship. At Swarthmore, Kimberly majored in history and also extensively studied French and Russian. And after Swarthmore, she attended Harvard and earned her master's in Russia, Eastern Europe, and Central Asia. And so she sometimes calls herself a Sovietologist, but she says, I do study imperial history also, but my heart is with Stalin. That's a line from Kimberly. I love that. She's now a high school teacher at Dayton High School in rural Texas and a faculty member at Lee College. Anyone out there play the card game Magic: The Gathering? Anybody? All right, I got someone up here who does also, all right? So I'm going to get you all together at the inn tonight, at the broad table. This is going to be the activity for, the Board of Managers activity for tonight is going to be Magic: The Gathering. The liberal arts can be really wonderfully inward-looking, and it can also be outward-looking. It can develop the life of the mind, which we love to celebrate here. It can also develop engagement with the world. And sometimes, actually here, often, it can do both. And Kimberly embodies this practice in her own teaching. She says that for her, teaching history is about helping people gain a better understanding of themselves and the world around them, and shaping their thinking and understanding to become better members of their communities and becoming lovers of lifelong learning. Kimberly told us recently that she almost didn't attend Swarthmore. She received her acceptance letter in a really small envelope, what I like, cute gimmick by the school, and she took that to mean it was a rejection letter, so she threw it out without opening it. And she said that her mother made her fish it out of the garbage and open it. And Kimberly, we're grateful to your mother for stressing a vital liberal arts value, close reading and attention to texts. And now I'm sure you pass that lesson along to others in your teaching, which is just another example of giving back and paying it forward. Please join me in welcoming Kimberly St. Julian-Varnon.
Здравствуйте, как дела? Хорошо, я надеюсь. That's Russian for hello, welcome. I hope you're all doing well. I'm very, very thankful for Swarthmore for having me back. I was sure I was the admissions mistake, and so you invited me back, so that means I wasn't. And I'm kind of anchoring this amazing group of presenters. I'm inspired. I want to go out and do more things now because of all of you. So I have to tell you something. This is not going to be a lecture about sage life advice. I don't have that. I can't promise you success if you follow a bunch of tips. I don't have those. I'm still trying to figure out how to be an adult. I'm just going to tell you about my life as a socially awkward Swattie who's also a Texan. And much like what Professor Berger said, I almost didn't become a Swattie. I threw away my acceptance letter. And I've never been so happy to go through garbage and coffee grounds to get something out of the trash. So my talk is about the life of the mind, and I was thinking about what that meant to me. And the first time I heard that was when I was looking at college admissions materials around the summer of 2007. I was looking at a thing from University of Chicago and had really cool artwork on it. And in the middle, it said, the life of the mind. And I just ripped the front off because I thought it was cool, and I put it on my wall and threw the rest of it away. And so it's kind of funny that I've been living this practice of the life of the mind since that time without really delving too deeply into what it meant to me. So to understand my experience in life, you should know my background. I come from Dayton, Texas. It's a rural place outside of Houston. I grew up on a farm. My dad delivers cows, like he's done that before. I've been there. My dad graduated from the black high school in my hometown. Our town was segregated. My mom didn't go to an integrated school until she was in 6th grade. And so when I was going through high school, I was often the only black person or person of color in my advanced classes. And I grew up hearing things like, oh, Kim, you're black and you're smart and you're a woman. You'll get in anywhere. Or when I got into grad school, Kim, do you think you got into Harvard because you're black? I said, totally. I mean, I just checked the box and I'm totally in. And I had experiences like that in high school. And when I got to Swarthmore, I was shocked. I was hearing about these places called Exeter. I didn't know what Exeter was. Apparently, it's a really great high school. I was like, I'm from rural Texas, and we're in the same place. So, you know. And Swarthmore changed me fundamentally. And I've always come from the idea that you should serve your community. That was ingrained in me by my grandparents and by my parents. And when I came to Swarthmore, I found a community in which service and learning went hand in hand. And that helped develop the idea of the life of the mind for me. For me, living the life of the mind means learning every day, but also helping someone else learn every day and using that learning to improve yourself and your community. And so I want to tell you a little bit about my Swarthmore experience because it's one of the reasons why I'm a teacher. When I first got to Swarthmore, it was during freshman orientation, and I got an email from a professor named Robert Weinberg, who had assigned us a 300-page book during orientation. I was like, you want me to read a whole book? Like, the whole thing? I was shocked. I thought it was going to be like reading Harry Potter. It'd take like 3 hours. It didn't. It took a lot of time, more time than I want to tell you. And I remember writing my first paper for him. And now I can say this, it was awful. I'm a great Texas state mandatory exam writer that doesn't require a lot of critical thinking. And Professor Weinberg, I got a grade I'm not going to talk about on that paper. And I went to him and I said, I need help because I don't know how to write. And he helped me. Every week, I was working with him on improving my writing. And now I can say, I think I'm a pretty good, historical writer, if I may say so myself. Thanks to him, thanks to Professor Judson, who wrote the snarkiest comments on my papers. I remember him writing, girl, really? I thought I was brilliant, but apparently not. So professors like Dr. Weinberg and Dr. Judson pushing me, making me think about questions I'd never thought of, making me question narratives, making me read and think critically. It is more to read than just to look at the words. What are the words telling you? What are they making you, think about? What conclusions can you draw? Another thing I learned at Swarthmore a lot because of the faculty, but also my fellow students, I learned empathy. I learned that as I was in a community that cared about me. I never once heard, Kim, you're going to get an A because you're black and you're smart. I heard, girl, we need to go in McCabe and get this work done because spring break is coming. I also like to tell people Swarthmore is a POC Slavic powerhouse. Swarthmore has women and members of color who are in Slavic studies, and I've been to national Slavic studies talks, and they've asked, what is Swarthmore doing to, make this diverse Slavic program? No one at Swarthmore told me I couldn't do Slavic studies. I've been asked multiple times, you're black, why do you do Russian? Why would you care about Stalin? Why aren't you studying American history? I never heard that at Swarthmore. When I was at the Slavic conference in New Orleans a few years ago, I didn't have my name badge on, and people were asking me questions. They thought I was a janitor working at the hotel until I put on my name tag that had Harvard on it. And then they changed how they approached me. And it's instances like that that shocked me because I never had that at Swarthmore. At Swarthmore, I was the socially awkward black girl who spoke Russian, but so was my best friend and roommate, Jackie, who was also black and spoke Russian and Persian. We were the dynamic duo. And another event that happened to me, going from rural Texas to Swarthmore was incredibly difficult on a lot of levels. I didn't think I was smart enough to be at Swarthmore. I was far away from home, and the Sharples food was not like my mom's food. She sent me boxes of food, by the way, because I asked. My grandmother passed away my freshman year. I found out when I was in Professor Rice, Micheline Rice Maximin's French class. I ran out of class. I was bawling. And I collapsed on the floor on the 3rd floor of Kohlberg in the hallway. And about 2 minutes later, I felt a hand on my shoulder and someone was hugging me, and it was her. And I was trying to explain to her why I was upset. And then I was thinking, how am I going to get home? And she bought me a plane ticket home that day. And so I was able to be with my family. And I was very, very, very close to my grandmother. And it was instances like that, instances where Bob Womberg told me, I know you're afraid to go to Ukraine because they're skinheads, but I think you can do it. But even if you choose not to do it, I support you. My advisor at Harvard told me to suck it up and go. Weinberg understood that being a black woman and being in Ukraine meant something very different. I was afraid. And you can ask him, you can look at the chain of emails of me going, what am I doing? But he believed in me. My professors at Swarthmore believed in me and they pushed me. And that's what I do as a teacher. I teach in the same high school I went to. I teach students whose parents are in prison. I teach students who are going through detox. They're finally getting clean off of drugs. I teach multiple teenage mothers. In my community college, I teach people who are in their 60s and 70s. I teach 19-year-olds. I have had many, many toddlers come to class because mama doesn't have a babysitter. And that's the way I want it to be. My love of learning lit a fire in me, and I love history. I want everyone to love history. So my passions are teaching history and making history more accessible. And I have a big bone to pick with the Academy about this particular issue, which is why I took time to learn how to teach. I can talk about Stalin all day, but what does that mean to my students? We're from a farm. How would y'all like it if somebody told you you had to go to the same job every day and you didn't get paid and they told you how much you had to pick and they took your tractors away? My students had a fit. Oh, no, miss, no. I said, you're a peasant. It's Russia. You have no choice. So doing things like that, helping my students understand history is never boring. Just random events. If a particular shell fell on a tent 2 minutes earlier and Adolf Hitler was in it, how different would our history be? And y'all watch HBO, you want sex scandals and politics. I mean, I'm a Soviet historian. The Bolsheviks have all of it. My teaching is so influenced by Swarthmore, by my professors who never told me I couldn't do it, and they kicked my butt and they pushed me. They would not let me rest on my intellectual laurels, and I do not let my students rest on their intellectual laurels. Every day you will have a student who say, Miss, why are you doing this to us? Because when you leave here, I want you to be successful. And for my students, success can mean graduating with a diploma. It can mean going to junior college. It can mean going to a four-year university. It can mean getting a job that helps them support their children. I have quite a few people, I have students who are 16 who have babies. And I teach them, I'm like, you are going to be the role model for your child. You don't need to look up to other people. You can do it yourself. Because coming from rural Texas, and I can admit this, a lot of the times there was not much to do, and you just think, is this it? All you do is get a job at the plant, or you go get a job at the prison that's 2 miles down the street from the high school. And that's never a bad thing. And I tell my students that you can work at the plant, you can work at the prison, but what I want to teach you is how to live in general. Work is not living. Living is taking joy in something, and I want you to think about how you can take joy. If you like plumbing, you be the best plumber there can be. I can't be a plumber, but I can teach you how to think. And if I can teach you how to think, you can do anything on this earth. And my students, they found out that this is taped, so they made me promise that I would mention them. So I'm going to tell you a couple of stories about my kids, and they're my kids. I have taught over 400 students in my 4 years of teaching. They're my children. I have one student who is special needs, and he thought he was stupid. He called himself ignorant. He was like, I'm an idiot, because his parents had told him that. He wanted to be a game warden. That's his goal. And he said, I can't go to college. I can't read. He has dyslexia. And I said, why do you think you're dumb? Like, he makes great grades. If you ask him questions, this child can tell you so much about history, about pre-AP chemistry, about math. He understands. He just has problems reading. So we sat down, we made him a college plan, and we found scholarships. He doesn't need his parents who told him that he would just be lucky if he could work at McDonald's. That child's going to college next year. I have another student who's from Mexico. I love this child. She is feisty and amazing in me when I was younger. And after the election, the day after the election, she came into my classroom crying. When she was walking to tennis practice, someone had thrown water on her and called her a wetback. And she was crying. And I was trying to explain to her that this event is terrible. I can't tell you how to feel about this, but what I will tell you is you remember this, because when you are being a doctor, you remember that that low person that did that to you did not stop you. And she's great. And I'm glad she didn't find the kid who did it, because there would have been some violence probably involved in that. And then I have my AP students. And one of them is brilliant. He has a photographic memory. And he just said, well, I think I'm just going to go get my 2-year certificate, and I'm going to go work at the plant. And I said that, if that's what you want to do, that's fine, but I don't think you want to do that. He wants to study mechanical engineering, but his dad just got laid off. There's no money. And so we had a good talk, and I told him, and his parents didn't understand, you can go to college. And yes, student loans are terrifying, but they're not always the worst case scenario. Think about the long-term impact of that. And I explained it to him. I said, I have student loans. I live fine, I teach you guys every day. I don't show up in a trash bag, I'm not homeless. You can be successful and still pay your student loans. And he just got accepted to Texas A&M with a full scholarship to study mechanical engineering. He wouldn't have applied if we hadn't sat down together and talked about it, because he didn't think he would get in. I was that kid. And finally, something that happened on Tuesday, my department head, who was also my AP Government Economics teacher, he called me out and he said, hey, we need to talk to this kid. I was like, oh, Lord, what happened? So this boy decided that he was going to drop out. His job was paying him $25 an hour. That was a lot more money than he made sitting in school. And he had been going to school 2 days a week because he was making so much money. And we had a talk, and we realized, I told him, I said, I know that money is a lot right now and your family needs it. But when you're 25, that's not going to be the same amount of money. And when you're 25 and you don't have a high school diploma, and I said, and you're Hispanic male in a very not so friendly to Hispanics town, I said, at least that piece of paper shows that you have enough education, you can go get a small business loan. You can go to junior college later on, because he wants to start his own business. So he's decided to do night school. So he goes to school half a day and he goes to work. So he's no longer having to make the decision between his future and a paycheck. And it's examples like that as to why I'm a teacher. Because I had professors who believed in me, who told me that I could do something. And I want to be that for my students. So for me, living the life of the mind, I learn every day. But if I'm not teaching other people how to do it, if I'm not living in service of others, I've not only betrayed myself, I feel like I've let down my Swarthmore community. And I've worked entirely too hard for that. Thank you.